Can you hear us? Can you... Over. We are sinking. We are sinking.
Hello? This is the German Coastguard.
We are sinking. We're sinking.
What are you thinking about?
Broadcasting from Brisbane, Australia, this is the FOMO Show.
I'm Matt.
And I'm Joe.
And this is a podcast where you'll hear about blockchain, cryptocurrency, emerging markets, and future tech in relatively plain English.
We'll help you stay across what's going on so you don't get the fear of missing out.
You can find us at FOMO.show or by searching for the FOMO Show on your platform of choice.
Everything in this show is in the show notes. You can find the links to anything we're talking about, timestamps to the relevant parts, so you can always skip ahead or find it later.
So this episode we're going to be, primarily the big feature of this episode is an interview with the NEM team from down in Melbourne.
Yeah, that was the other week when you were down there for your blockchain masterclass.
Yeah. So I was down there and I dropped in at the blockchain center, and we do have an interview coming up with them as well. But I interviewed the team from NEM who are based in Melbourne.
Amazing.
Great interview. Really good hearing about everything they're doing. And yeah, we'll have the YouTube version of that video up probably around about the time this podcast goes live as well.
We're also going to be covering a few bits of news, and there's going to be a crypto update for a few of the different cryptocurrencies we've been watching.
Do you want to be a part of the show? You can record a voice message in Telegram or email it to us at fomoshow@protonmail.com.
What have you been up to the last couple of weeks?
Mate, I've been prepping for the inaugural Blockchain for Business Meetup here in Brisbane. So
you're running that, aren't you?
Yeah. So I've started a new meetup series called Blockchain for Business. It's, as the name suggests, it's focused towards people who are involved in business in various capacities and how we may use the blockchain or not use the blockchain in various business ways. So the first few are just going to be going through the basics for people that don't have that much familiarity with blockchain. But the aim is to build a community around the blockchain space here in Brisbane, primarily focused on business. So I know we've got a few developers coming. I know we've got some business owners coming. I know we've got some people who are looking to get into the space. Yeah, look, as with everything, it's all network effects. And if we want blockchain technology to begin being picked up by merchants and businesses, then we need the network. So that's the aim for that. So that should be really good. So that will most likely have already occurred by the time this goes to air.
Yep, indeed.
We'll report back next time on how that goes.
So where can people go to join that?
Yeah, I'll paste a link in the show notes. But if you search for Blockchain for Business Brisbane in meetup.com, you should be able to find it. What have you been up to, mate?
Mate, I've been doing quite a few things this week. Primarily, a lot of reading about this new WordPress Gutenberg setup. Now, if you've never heard of WordPress, it's like a back-end website management system. It's one of the most popular. It's probably the most popular content management system, they call it a CMS, out there. And they're building a new interface for editing websites. And because it's on millions of websites, it's currently in beta, but we've been using it on our site. Really, really exciting. And it's got so much potential for the future of websites. Because right now, website interfaces is just like a word editor where it's just about typing in words. And then it's kind of shoddy if you want to embed videos and other things. This is making it making an interface for the future of websites. So you're going to be able to drop polls in, cool sections with random bits, and it's all going to be a beautiful interface for building it so that people can actually create great content. So I've been really excited about that, trying to dig through the bits, but nothing really to report, but it's very exciting.
Yeah, well, even just from using it on our FOMO show site, it's really interesting because, generally what you type into the back end of your website isn't how it looks when it actually gets to the website. But Gutenberg, it basically looks the same. Once it goes live, you can pretty much get like a live view of what it's going to look like when you publish it, which is great. So I was really impressed when you put it on and you took me through it. Yeah, cool.
Is this investment or any other advice?
No, so this podcast is not investment, legal, tax, financial, or any type of other advice. So we're not saying you should buy anything at all on this show. And full disclosure, we're both personally invested in different cryptocurrencies, and we do talk about some of them on the show. But if we talk about something, it doesn't necessarily mean you should buy it, invest in it, or take any other action based on it.
So, do your research, never invest more than you can afford to lose, and most of all, avoid the fear of missing out.
If you're new around here and new to crypto, you can check out our Blockchain Basics series. It starts from episode 2 and continues until around about episode 8. It'll give you some grounding in the fundamentals and help you understand what on earth we're talking about.
Cool.
Cool.
So let's jump into some of the news. First up, Waymo. What's going on there?
They're launching their first self-driving transportation service this year. So according to media reports, and this is from Zero Hedge, Waymo is going to be launching 62,000 Chrysler Pacifica minivans, which it'll be adding to its fleet in anticipation of launching the transportation service as soon as this year. So these minivans are going to be equipped with the autonomous driving software, which puts Waymo ahead of companies like Uber and Tesla, and they're both working on pushing new solutions to the industry itself. So Waymo is, I believe, the Google implementation of it, but we've also got Uber, Tesla, I think Ford and Toyota are also working on implementations. But it seems like from everything I've been hearing, Waymo are out ahead of everyone else. And I think some of that may simply be because Google has such a vast mapping network to draw upon.
Yeah, my bad. I thought Waymo was owned by Uber. Wow, that's insane.
It's crazy that it could be here as soon as this year. I was watching like an E3 trailer or something a few days ago because E3 was on, and over breakfast I'd just sit there
That's
watching.
That's a big gaming event each year, isn't it?
Yeah. And so every now and then I just jumped on and had a quick look at what they were doing, and there was this like futuristic thing where like people were driving cabs, but AI were taking over, and it looked like it was set like 50 years in the future, you know. But in reality, it's probably going to be more like 5 or 10 years. Sheesh. And the fact that Google has come out now and essentially said we're almost there means that I don't think we're even as far off as we thought we were.
Sheesh. So if you're a taxi driver living in the area near to where they're launching that, hold on to your pants. You're probably going to need to retrain. That's insane.
Find something else.
Oh, mate.
So next article, the Port of Brisbane, so right here where we live, has unveiled a blockchain system for managing port operations.
So PricewaterhouseCoopers Australia, the Australian Chamber of Commerce and Industry, and the Port of Brisbane have worked together to develop a trade community system designed to link international supply chain information using blockchain technology. That's coming out of maritimeexecutive.com, a fascinating website for shipping and related news.
If that's what you're into, it's there's a lot of stuff in there for you.
Like Forklift Daily.
But mate, it's big because that's happening in our backyard. And PwC are one of the main. PwC and Deloitte are both getting quite heavily into blockchain tech, and it makes sense because that's their MO. Their primary industry is finance. Yeah, the Port of Brisbane handles approximately 50 billion in international trade annually. So it's not a small port. And I've been out there before, and there's a lot going on out there. So if they are talking about building a blockchain solution, they must see some real value in implementing it as opposed to their centralized solutions.
Yeah. So one of the big problems with Australia compared to a lot of our competitors in the nearby area, it's a much more regulation and document exchange to deal with, so the cost is higher and the time is much slower.
It's one of those things where a part of you wants to be like, oh, I hope the government doesn't get into this because like this is our little decentralized world and we don't want the government getting into this decentralized world. But on the other hand, and I've talked to people about this before, without the government getting into it, I mean, at the end of the day, generally everyone will need to comply with the laws of the land, and it's going to be a lot easier to comply with the laws of the land if the government's plugging into the system or if they're supporting the system in some way. And so I see this as a really promising step because it means that governments are now looking at blockchain as not a threat, but something that can be harnessed and they can work collaboratively with players in the space.
Yeah.
Awesome. So I think it's really positive. IBM have built these new artificial synapses, they're called. And they're essentially building... they're almost so the whole thing comes from neural networks, and scientists have been working on these neural networks for a long time, and they're designed to basically mimic what goes on in our brain. And of course, they haven't been able to design anything anywhere near as complex as our brain. So it's all about just trying to get closer and closer to the kind of crazy computations that go on in our head.
And that's currently built in software, isn't it?
Yeah, it's currently built in software. And so what IBM have actually come out with is they've said, well, what if we built it at the hardware level instead?
Wow.
So what if we implemented all this neural net technology in the hardware itself? And this is where they're talking about these artificial synapses. So if you know anything about the brain, you know that when you're thinking or when you're doing some kind of computation in your head, these little things called synapses fire. But essentially, IBM have found a way to build some of that neural network functionality into artificial synapses.
What does that mean in numbers?
Yeah, so in number form, they've said that it could mean that machine learning could happen approximately 100 times more efficiently than it does now.
Sheesh.
So to perform the same computation using IBM's artificial synapses, it would take 1% of the energy that the current deep learning software algorithms take.
Wow.
Which is huge, because
Yeah.
if you read up about the deep learning software stuff, they've got whole server farms working on these things. You know, they're not small operations. And so not only would it mean that it's cheaper energy-wise, but it means you could also get a lot more done. If you can build these things and they can perform a lot more for a lot less, it means that you can scale the machine learning up a lot more. So all that to say, this deep learning and machine learning stuff, the biggest barrier has been, just the software hasn't been up to scratch, and IBM seemed to have a way forward. So watch this space.
Amazing. Next piece of news, really, really interesting. It's easier than you think to craft AI tools without typing a line of code. A really cool startup called Lobe. Check out their website, lobe.ai. It's a drag and drop interface for building deep learning algorithms from scratch. Now, it's mainly focused on machine vision from what we can see on The Verge and seeing on their website. But you could actually teach an app to recognize stuff like houseplants or Scrabble pieces or count the number of birds in a tree or a bunch of different things. And it looks amazing.
Yeah, they were actually talking about even like being able to take photos of your baby when they're climbing out of the crib, essentially teaching this machine learning algorithm, Lobe, without doing any coding to recognize when your baby's trying to escape from a crib and send a phone alert to you. And I mean, Joe's up on the screen right now. He's looking at these hand gesture thing. And what's that doing, mate?
So that is basically taking in an image from a video of someone doing a peace symbol with their hands. They're then plugging that into a detect features function, then generating labels from it, and then it basically works out the most relevant hand gesture that it's doing and then tells you what it is. Really worth looking at the lobe.ai website. It looks incredible.
Yeah. It's a little bit scary too, though, isn't it?
Absolutely terrifying. Next up, Coinbase have launched an index fund for big investors.
Yeah, so the previously announced, I think we covered this before, the Coinbase Index Fund has officially opened for investments of $250,000 to $20 million. So the fund's geared towards institutional investors.
Yeah, Coinbase have actually said that they're planning to broaden their horizons with other offerings to smaller investors like you or me. So that's going to be on the horizon, but who knows how far away that is.
Yeah.
Really cool stuff there.
Yeah.
China's State TV did a whole segment on the blockchain, and they said that blockchain was 10 times more valuable than the internet. In a segment named Dialogue the other Sunday, so the host featured an hour-long discussion that was for the first time dedicated to educating their audience base, a pretty big audience base, on the concept, potential risks and benefits of blockchain technology.
10 times more valuable than the internet.
It's a bit of a say. What do you reckon? Is it 10 times more valuable than the internet?
Look, I mean, you think of, the internet's been going for what, 30 years now? You think of the amount of value that's come out of the internet.
Couple trillion here and there.
Yeah. Look, it's got a long way to go if it's going to get anywhere near there. But in saying that, at the very least, it will mean that there's now a number of people that watch this dialogue program that are going to sit up and take notice.
More stuff coming out of China. The Chinese state is using RFID to track cars' movements around the country. So they're establishing a new system to track cars using the electronic tags. And the Wall Street Journal describes the plan as something that will improve public security. And it will also purportedly help ease extreme congestion in largest Chinese cities. The plan's set to be rolled out by the 1st of July, and it will rely on chips that can be identified thanks to their unique signature, but compliance will be voluntary at first. And it's then going to become mandatory for all new vehicles by January 2019.
The system will actually register when your car passes a certain landmark that's been tagged. So I'll know the area.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I guess it's like, in the US, I know that they've got RFID chips on cars to when they go through toll points. And we've got the same in Australia, don't we? How long until that comes over here? Not long. If China's doing it, we're not far behind.
That's right. Yeah. So what's Elon Musk's company doing?
Yeah, so the Boring Company, they won a high-speed transit contract in Chicago, a contract to build a rapid transit link between O'Hare Airport and downtown. The trip currently takes about 40 minutes on public transportation, but the Boring Company aims to cut that down to 12 minutes using electric shuttles. Musk calls them skates, which is like a modified Model X chassis, to zip passengers through tunnels at 120 to 150 miles an hour. And they'd be paying $20 to $25 a ride, which is apparently half the price of an Uber.
Wow. Everything Elon Musk does, I'm not as big of a fanboy as you are, but I'm still a fanboy of what he does. And they just say that he says the coolest things. So he's got a company who are literally, the company's called a Boring Company. The Boring Company, which is the name says it all. They bore holes in the ground. But he's calling them skates, the things that move between the 2 points. It just sounds so cool, man.
Oh, mate, it really is. Worth checking out the Boring Company website page on that Chicago project, boringcompany.com/Chicago. This whole idea is crazy. And what Elon Musk, the Boring Company is actually going to front the construction funds. So they're going to pay for it. And what they're going to get is a share of the fees paid by passengers and advertising revenue.
Right.
You're stuck in a shuttle for 12 minutes.
Yeah.
And there are adverts.
Yeah.
How good is that?
Yeah.
And you've paid to see those adverts.
Yeah.
It's like going to the cinema.
It is. I wonder if it'll be like the cinema, how you don't remember the ads at the end of the movie.
Looks pretty cool.
No, it looks great. It's really worth checking out. I mean, we can't really do it justice, but their plans for what they want to do, incredible. It makes so much more sense. So, Joe, you found some really interesting news around augmented reality and AI.
Really cool website worth subscribing to. The Programmable Web basically shows you all the new APIs coming out. So all these different products where you can tap into their data and use it for your own projects. This company, uSense, have debuted an AI-based 3D skeletal hand tracking software development kit for smartphones. It's for iPhone and Android. These are basically tools for augmented and virtual reality. So this basically, like most technologies, only allow you to track fingertips right now, which is cool. But this uses computer vision and deep learning technology with your regular mobile phone camera to provide full hand skeleton tracking and 3D motion recognition, which means it's going to be so much easier with just regular phones. It's not necessarily this product, but products like this are going to make it so much faster and more efficient to build augmented reality apps that drop you straight into virtual worlds, which is cool.
Yeah. So like something like Pokemon Go, for example, that everyone's been playing. Instead of just kind of doing a little action on your phone, it could actually track your hand. As you throw the Pokeball or whatever.
It's going to be wild.
Wow.
So gestures, all kinds of stuff. And it means you won't have a random controller. You'll be using your hand, which is kind of how we're supposed to interact with stuff.
Yeah. It'll be a lot more tactile. Oh, it's coming real quick, mate. It's
terrifying. Don't you just want time to slow down a bit, you know?
And it's just so hard to keep up with everything.
Oh, it's ridiculous.
If there's something that you would like us to cover, I mean, because on that, it is really hard to cover everything, but we like to give as you probably noticed, we like to give a good overview of some of the most interesting things that are happening. If you see something that you would like us to cover, or you just like us to know about, please jump into our Telegram. Just swing us the link, let us know, and we can have a discussion about it in there too.
Thank you so much for joining us. Absolute pleasure having you here. Wherever you are, do feel welcome to drop in our Telegram channel, say hello, drop us random links and GIFs. There have been so many updates to a bunch of the projects that we like. It's been hard to keep up. So you're going to take us through a whistle-stop tour of what's been going on. What's been going on?
That's right, yeah. So the first thing we've had that's been in the news and everyone's got an opinion on it is the EOS Mainnet has launched. For those of you who've been following along at home with our regular EOS updates, for the EOS Mainnet to launch, there was a number of block producers that needed to be elected. And the way that you elected the block producers was to essentially import your private key into the network and signal or stake your tokens for the block producers that you wanted producing blocks. And there's 21, I think you could elect 30, and the top 21 that everyone elected combined would have the privilege of being the block producers going forward. It took about 4 or 5 days for us to reach 15%. That was a threshold that we need. So you needed 15% of the total votes to essentially turn on the network.
Right.
And initially it was very slow and everyone was saying, this is the problem with the decentralized launch. EOS should have launched it. But eventually we did hit 15%. Some notable names didn't make it. So what we essentially saw was a lot of Chinese and Korean token holders voted. And they voted for several block producers that no one had ever really heard of. They'd done nothing for the community, as we know. They may have been doing things in China that we weren't aware of, but they kind of came out of nowhere. And so companies like Eosphere, which is one of the big ones from here in Australia, Greymass, who did a really useful voting tool, and Tokenica, which was another one that did a useful voting tool, they all didn't make it as of now, so they're all backup block producers. But the network has launched. You can go to eospark.com to see who the current block producers are and what they're doing. But the biggest news from probably about a day before we were recording today was that the block producers actually had to take the network down for about 6 hours because there was an edge case bug that was found. And so all transactions stopped and the user logs were backed up, and the block producers said, okay, we've got to take the network down while Block One, the EOS company, fixes this, and then we'll bring the network back up. And so if you had gone on Reddit when all this was going on, there was some very differing views. So all the people that are obviously not big fans of EOS were saying, this is the problem with it. It's a mainnet launch. It's an absolute shambles. With the network's down for 6 hours. It's rubbish. And other people were saying, well, this is a new project. It's actually great because they were able to fix it within 6 hours, whereas something like Ethereum or Bitcoin would have taken months to fix. And it's just been really interesting to watch. The least you could say, I think everyone could agree on, is that it's a really interesting experiment because you're essentially launching one of the biggest networks live without the company that built the software involved in the launching of the network itself.
Sheesh.
And you're watching these there's these pseudo-political things play out. There's bugs and people trying to break the network playing out as well. And it's been really interesting. I've been enjoying watching it. And I guess my one takeaway from the whole thing would be just to remember that when, for example, Ethereum launched or Bitcoin launched or other networks launched, there were issues early on. And any software that launches, there's generally always issues early on. And I don't think anyone is going to be running out and putting multi-million-dollar smart contracts on the EOS network straight away. And you'd be silly if you did. I'm just enjoying watching the network launch, and I'm interested to see what happens.
Mate, exciting. So what's going on at Dash, laddie?
So I've been using Dash to pay for a number of transactions.
Right.
I've got my haircut with Dash.
Nice.
I've bought food with Dash.
Ooh.
I've bought drinks with Dash.
Ooh.
There's plenty of things I can do with Dash. Anyway, the reason I use Dash is because it's quick, it's instant, no fuss, and it just works. That's what I really, really like about it. It just works. We've kind of talked a little bit about Dash before. We'll probably cover them more sometime soon on one of the episodes. But they've got like a treasury model with masternodes. So they a certain amount of the network fee goes to this treasury, and every month they determine what new projects they want to support. So they've got journalists that go around the world covering different events where people are using Dash. They've got educational things they support. All that to say, when this new announcement came up, it caught my eye. So Dash have announced something called Dash Evolution, and apart from the really cliche kind of name, it's actually really interesting when you look into the design. And we'll put the link up in the show notes, but they've designed an easy. They're trying to design a system which makes it very easy to have micropayment setups.
Oh yeah,
like native to the protocol. Okay. They want to make it able to connect even easier with merchants, so make it essentially have some better proprietary tech to make it easier for merchants to integrate with their system. And they also want a decentralized API, so you can actually add like mobile payments to your website. So you just be able to have like a Pay with Dash button on your website, and if you clicked on that, there'd be just a web container around it, and you could very quickly and easily hook into, say, like a merchant partner to pay with Dash to someone. So it's currently in alpha, and we won't cover it too much, but if you're interested in that, it's well worth going and looking at it. Once it's out of alpha, I'm definitely interested in maybe setting it up and tinkering with it sometime soon. So we'll report back on how it goes. But they're just doing everything right, and they're looking at meeting merchants where they're at, trying to really help get as many people integrated into this ecosystem as possible. So, it's really good.
That's great.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, there are so many things where you need to go into some kind of matrix and type some commands and you think a little bit. It's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
This is good. Good. Mate, so what's going on with Blockgrain? You interviewed them last episode. What's been happening there?
Yeah, so they've been running their token sale, and it actually ends on the 24th of June. So by the time you hear this recording, you'll probably only have a couple of days left if you want to get your hands on some of their ICO merchandise. But yeah, look, if you missed it, we interviewed them last episode, so you can go to episode 20 and listen to that interview.
Good episode.
And yeah, if you want to learn more about the project, you can go to blockgrain.io.
Cosmos, what on earth is that?
Yeah, so the Cosmos Network Hub is launching shortly, and they're in testnet stage. And we covered Tendermint, which is the underlying technology for the Cosmos project a couple of episodes ago. I think it was only in passing, so we'll have to spend some more time on it and circle back to it in one of our future episodes. But it essentially what they're wanting Cosmos to be is a blockchain of blockchains, and it's been in production for several years. So you can dig up videos from them from as early as I think 2015. They've been working on this for a long time. It's a very reputable team, and they're essentially building a blockchain technology and language which will be able to essentially import almost any blockchain. And so you'll use their consensus algorithm and technology, but you could run Ethereum on their blockchain, or you could peg Ethereum to their blockchain. So there's several different ways of doing it, but it's all designed to run through Cosmos, this Cosmos hub. So they're nearing launch. They're aiming to have 100 validators, which are like 100 full nodes, and they've only got 22 at the moment. So if you're at all interested in running a full node for what is probably quite a promising project, I'm quite interested in their project simply because of the team and the technology, and I really like a lot of what I'm seeing from them. So I recommend checking Cosmos out. I'd recommend if you've got the computer to do it, or if you run a server farm or something else, and you're wanting something to throw your hashing power at, then Cosmos could be something that would be might be quite attractive. So and they are flying relatively under the radar too. The initial network will support staking, delegation, and governance. You'll be able to stake Atom, which is their native currency, And they've actually had a couple of very large updates recently, which has explained a lot more of how the network's going to look at launch. So we'll put the links to those in the show notes. But yeah, definitely check out Tendermint. I've been telling, and Cosmos, I've been telling a lot of people about it, but it is a really interesting project. I think it's quite promising and be worth your while looking at.
Amazing.
So, mate, you've got this week's cool tool.
Yeah, so it's a rehash of a tool that we discussed in a previous episode a long time ago. We just wanted to bring it to your attention again. It's called Cryptowat. Watch like the thing that tells you the time, or any other thing that you'd watch. That's just weird. Anyway, it's called Cryptowat, but we just wanted to reiterate it to you because it looks so cool. And it's just a really cool way of screening cryptocurrency prices and seeing real-time graphs. If you want something cool to go on your computer screen while you're pretending to work, use it.
Yeah, if you want to look like you're a hotshot trader, this is the perfect thing to put up on your screen.
Oh, mate.
You showed me a really funny clip recently that was done by a comedy duo here in Australia called Hamish and Andy, which a lot of people know.
Yeah, so this was from back in January, but I actually had my housemate told me about this, and he was like, oh, you got Bitcoin? Have a look at this. Great little sound clip from one of their friends, Jack, who was celebrating losing money on Bitcoin.
Yeah, so we just thought we'd play it for you just because it's pretty good.
It's a little highlight.
Like investing in the speculative market and losing 70% of earnings in 3 weeks. I'm so happy that happened to me.
No, you're not.
I am so happy.
No, you're not.
I am so happy.
No, you are not.
I am so happy that happened to me.
No, it's not.
That is a good thing.
No,
that
it's not.
Bitcoin crashed. I am so thankful for that.
Mate, that's exactly how I felt when
I am so happy.
I'm so happy. So a few weeks ago, I had the pleasure of sitting down with the NEM team from Melbourne when I was in the Blockchain Centre, and it was a really good interview. And we covered NEM a few episodes ago, but it was great being able to talk to some of the actual team about the technology and ask them some of the specific questions that we'd been wondering about when we covered NEM. So we'll play the interview, and yeah, I hope you enjoy it. I found it was a real pleasure to interview the team, and hopefully you get a lot from it. Hi everyone, Matt here from the FOMO Show. I'm here with Jason and Jian from the NEM project.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Not a problem. So we've just dropped in here at the Blockchain Centre in Melbourne, and there's a lot going on here. And NEM have essentially a Victorian headquarters here, if that's correct. Yep. And we just thought we'd get an interview about the NEM project, so what it does, what markets you're targeting, and what's planned for the future. So would you mind just telling me a little bit first about what you both do for NEM?
So I'll start first, yeah. So my name is Jason Lee. I'm the expansion director for Australia and New Zealand. And actually, in fact, the Australian office is here at the Blockchain Centre in Melbourne where we're sitting. Yeah. And I'm here to just oversee the adoption of the NEM blockchain in terms of real-world use cases that are adopting the blockchain. And we also have a cryptocurrency called the ZEM crypto. So I'll just pass it on to Jen for the next question. Yeah. To introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Jen. Thanks for that, Jason. I'm part of the NEM Foundation here in Melbourne. I'm the Melbourne lead. So like Jason said, I'm based off the Blockchain Centre as well. So what I do here is more educational in terms of giving talks to people, trying to separate the whole thing down between blockchain and cryptocurrency, trying to teach people the differences, and also doing business development here in Melbourne. So I'm the business lead here, helping businesses build on the NEM blockchain.
Brilliant. Okay, and what's your experience been helping with businesses building on the blockchain?
It's really positive so far. Yeah, a lot of people are really excited. They really want to build on it. Yeah. You do get a little bit of noise sometimes when people like trying to establish what blockchain actually is. Yeah. And, like you get a lot of people trying to build on the blockchain for the sake of building on the blockchain. Yep. So we help sift those people out and actually, kind of consult them. So to just tell them whether they actually have a solution in the blockchain with the issues they have at the moment and whether it's actually worth going on the blockchain.
Right. Okay. Brilliant. And so for those that aren't that familiar with the NEM blockchain, we featured it a few episodes ago, but there's probably people listening who aren't very familiar with what NEM does. Could you explain to me what the NEM blockchain does, what some of the differences are, and where some of the use cases of your technology might be as far as a real-world implementation?
Okay. I'll start from what NEM is different from others. So our differentiation is essentially that we're API based. So you don't have to learn a whole different code language in order to build on NEM. So you can actually have your existing businesses just hook it up to, you build an API and hook it up to our system and a network, and they can use the blockchain and then network straight away.
So it's a lot more similar to the current web architecture that most developers are familiar
with. Correct, yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I guess the whole concept with the viewers here need to understand API is application programming interface. And think of it, if you go on Google and you search, can I get flights from Melbourne to Sydney? And Google Flights actually comes and says Qantas has this, Jetstar has this, and it's all actually Google going into the actual website of Qantas and Jetstar and then linking it and getting the price and the timing, and that's called APIs.
Right.
So the whole concept of NEM is that you could actually build your own platform on a website portal, and through that link it onto the blockchain and then get a full advantage of utilizing a blockchain. So it's a very easy to use plug and play solution.
Okay, and that's one of the big challenges with blockchain at the moment, isn't it? With a lot of other blockchains, is that you've got this information which is held on the blockchain, and then you've got this separate information which is held on the web. And making the two talk a lot of the times is quite difficult. So the API solution is essentially designed to make that project, that way of doing things a lot easier. Correct?
Exactly. Yeah. So it's completely based on you can call it JavaScript and C++. So these are languages that are very familiar to developers from the get-go.
Okay.
So you don't actually have to learn a new language. And, sometimes when you do learn a new language, there's a little bit of teething problems. Yeah, so you get some issues when you're building on it.
Yeah.
And when you reach roadblocks, it's not a wasted time and a wasted effort when you already learned how to code in C++ and JavaScript.
Yeah.
Because all the endeavors and all the cost that goes into learning a new language and building a new platform, then you realize it doesn't work. That's a lot of wasted time and effort.
Yeah.
Whereas the learning to code in JavaScript and C++, you already have that tool set, and you're not it's not as if that's going to go to waste anywhere else.
Right.
And you always can switch to other functions that you're going to build on. Yeah.
Okay, and so how have you found businesses approach that then? Has that been implemented practically? Have you got some projects that are really relying on that API layer to implement blockchain practically in their business yet?
In terms of use cases?
Yes.
Yeah, we've got a use case in the moment, Copyright Bank. So they have a website, they built a website that hooked up to the blockchain network, the NEM's blockchain network. Yeah. And the idea is you actually drag and drop all your copyright material into the website, and it'll give you like a certificate in the end saying that it has been certified, it has been now copyrighted, and it goes on the blockchain and makes it immutable. So it just hooks up to the blockchain, and that data itself is now on the blockchain. So because it's being uneditable and immutable, it makes it more solid in terms of if you want to defend it in the law of court, let's say, and you say, because it hasn't been hacked yet, and it's time-stamped on the time that I put it on the blockchain. Yeah, that's my material instead of yours. If you want to make money off it or commercialize that kind of copyright. Material.
So for those that don't know, the blockchain provides an immutable ledger, essentially, for information to be stored. And what you're saying is that NEM have created a system to make it quite easy to take real-world information and swap it over to an immutable ledger system, which other companies can then start using, and you can use in partnerships and similar situations like that.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay, brilliant. And so what other things separate NEM then from other blockchains? Because I know at the moment, we've talked about this on the show before, there's some big problems with scaling, for example. At the moment, Ethereum can only handle around 15 transactions per second. Bitcoin generally handles a little bit less than that. And there's a real focus, and we've seen this with other new blockchain projects, to make that scale up. Because if we're going to be able to use this for business, we need to make sure that things are fast. So what does NEM do to solve that solution?
Well, quite scalable in terms of, let's say you just mentioned the transaction speed. And we can handle about 2,000 with a new Catapult upgrade, 4,000 transactions a second.
Wow.
So quite a bit more than Bitcoin in that regard. You want to talk more about the Catapult system?
Yeah, that's So existingly right now, the NEM blockchain is on the normal public blockchain. There's about 1,000 nodes that track the blockchain itself, a 60-second block time. And we've got a new technology update called Catapult. And when Catapult comes in, it's likely going to be end of this year, beginning of next year. It's actually going to increase the transaction speed tremendously for NEM blockchain. So that pushes it up to about 4,000 transactions per second, and that's the estimates that they've tested it on a testnet basis. But on the mainnet basis, we've been running fine and going well so far. So we're actually attracting more companies now to have high transaction speeds on us. So an example, a test subject is Japan's first virtual online bank are looking into using the NEM blockchain together with Hyperledger as a fused kind of project, and that's being tested out right now.
And so that actually works then. So the NEM architecture is able to integrate with other blockchain systems then.
Yeah, so we're really focusing on seeing whether we can do blockchain interoperability.
Right.
So currently now that's being tested, and if that becomes a success story, that'll be great, because a lot of companies I know are working towards that.
Yeah, and that's kind of the holy grail of blockchain at the moment, isn't it? We've got all these different systems, and I think there was a lot of similarities with the internet early on. We had a lot of smaller networks, and the big breakthrough came when we were able to join it all together. And if we can do a similar thing with blockchain, then we can finally start pulling the whole ecosystem together into one giant whole.
Yeah, that's right.
So that's coming with Catapult then? NEM are working on the inter-blockchain operability with Catapult?
Catapult's more an update on the NEM blockchain itself. So the blockchain interoperability is being developed by sort of external parties who would like to work on that. So I know of a few other companies that are exploring the sort of fusion itself, and some of them have even done ICOs and they're looking to it. But we're here just focused on the NEM blockchain, but we're open to talking to partners who would be able to say, hey, we want to sort of have that interoperability with other blockchain protocols. I think to date there are about 130 blockchain protocols out of the 1,600 cryptocurrencies listed on CoinMarketCap, and probably thousands more out there. Yeah,
they aren't even listed.
That's right. Yeah. I heard that there were 27,000 Ethereum smart contracts, 13,000 Waves tokens, and many more other different tokens out there. Neo has their own platform, NEM as well as ours and so on.
Yeah, they're a little bit of dime a dozen at the moment, aren't they? Yeah. When we covered NEM a few episodes ago, we talked a lot about the smart asset side of NEM. Would you mind talking a little bit about what smart assets are and why NEM it makes so much sense as a platform if you're looking to give your assets, whether digital or physical, some blockchain personality?
Yep, so smart asset, breaking it down, is essentially an asset that is smart, right? And what does smart really mean? So actually a good example would be to use a corporate bank that Jian mentioned. So for example, if you've got a digital work like a photo that you took or a set of lyrics that you wrote for a song, and that's a digital work, right? So you then put it on the blockchain, and hence that's your copyright right now. And what does it mean turning into a smart asset? Turning into a smart asset could mean that now that song lyric could be written by 3 or 4 different people, and that means that I can now have different owners on the blockchain that owns that song lyric, or it could be a transferable ownership. So let's say I wrote that song lyric and someone did the tunes, and I want to transfer my ownership of the lyrics to the person that did the tunes, and then that turns into a smart asset as well. So essentially what makes something a smart asset is that you can use that asset for multiple purposes, and that's what NEM is working and pushing hard to do. So for example, one of the breakthrough smart asset examples is Catapult when launches this thing called a multi-layer multi-signature platform. Right. So now now NEM has a multi-signature platform, so that means that I won't be able to release let's say $250 to you, Matthew, unless both Jen and I sign that thing. So that's a multi-signature contract, right? Yeah. Now there's this thing called a multi-layer multi-signature contract, where sometimes it's a bit more complicated than that, right? There could be multiple more signatures that require, especially for example in the concept of a will or estate. When you passed on and you want to provide ownership of some of your resources, they need multiple signatures. Let's say there's the executor is underage, and there's the parents and a guardian and so on. Yep. So with NEM, they've implemented a system where everyone can sign, and it all goes under one transaction. Right. So that makes it very simple and seamless. Yeah. Because when it's locked on the blockchain, that one transaction can signify something like 100 different signatures below it, right? But it actually only shows one transaction there. Okay. Yeah.
And so, I mean, that was one of the biggest things when I was looking at NEM that drew me to the platform was the concept of smart assets. And coupling with that, what I noticed when I played around with the interfaces that have been built for NEM was they were quite user friendly and they were quite intuitive. So let's say I wanted to set up a will with a smart asset, multi-layer, multi-signature system. How would I go about doing that with the NEM platform?
So if you want to do that, essentially right now we're actually inviting companies to build a simple, let's say, user interface or a portal website with a branding and say, hey, we're doing this right now and anyone can do it. Currently, we don't have that right now. So you'd probably want to have a developer that can code that system in and then use that coding to then come up into a portal, and then that portal allows you to sort of upload file, drag and drop it in, and then link it up to the blockchain. And then within what we call a NEM Nano wallet, a host list of services, and one of it will show multi-signature. So you click and execute the multi-signature, and then that can then come up onto the NEM blockchain. So how to access that NEM Nano wallet? It's on our website. So if you go into our website and look into downloads, you can actually download the NEM Nano wallet, where you've got a whole robust features of items there. So you've got multi-signature contracts, you've got a voting platform that's voting on the blockchain. You can even do a direct debit function. You could send a message along with the transaction that you're sending through as well. And those are a number of features. So for example, the messaging feature, right? If I send to you 1 Bitcoin, I'll have to send you a text, say, I've just sent to you 1 Bitcoin. But in NEM itself, when you send it, you can attach a message to it, like literally in English, saying this is a message out there. All
right. So another thing that I saw when we were featuring NEM and looking through it was that you also had like a notary system, which essentially hooks into this everything else, the multi-signature accounts, the smart assets. I think it was called apostille.
Yep, that's
notary
right, apostille,
system. So could you talk to me a little bit about that and how that plays into the whole ecosystem as well?
I think you've got more experience.
Okay. So, all right. So, So, apostille is essentially a blockchain timestamping function. So think of it, the early days when you've got a document that you need an approval. Someone comes in and they just stamps it and say that I'm the school principal and I stamp a certain letter for approval, right? So that in that way, apostille does that as well. So when you go through, let's say, a supply chain process, you can actually timestamp every single piece of the supply chain leg of it, right? So an example is NEM has a project with the Ministry of Agriculture in Japan, and they're essentially timestamping the process of wild game meat. So it could be a Kobe or Wagyu beef, and every part of the process is timestamped to ensure that the entire supply chain movement is sort of with the right information and the right process that is going through it.
Right. So if I'm a butcher, say, selling the meat right at the end, I'd be able to look up the this apostille notary system and see that, yes, this is where the meat started.
That's right.
This is where it went. This is the suppliers it went through. Correct. And now it's arrived at my door.
Yes.
And I can tell that verifiably, without a doubt, it came from where they say it came from.
That's right.
Okay. Which you can't do at the moment. I mean, here in Australia, we buy things that have Australian made on the sticker, and it's more, you have to trust. You just have to trust that sticker means that it's come from Australia. But this is a way that people can actually verify that.
That's right.
It's more transparency because you don't know how much of that process is done overseas. Whereas what does Australian made really mean,
Yeah, and so when you couple that with the smart asset system, for example, you'd be able to, the song you were talking about before, you'd be able to see exactly where the rights of that song have travelled.
That's right.
Before they've arrived to you.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's right.
Okay. And there might be messages.
Correct.
Linked in with all that.
Yeah,
as well.
and so for example, one sort of way of smart assets being seen as well is let's say someone did the song lyric, someone composed a song, and then they now publish the song online in their own website, and they link it on the blockchain, and users can actually download the song and pay for the song, right? And whenever they download, pay for the song, it actually logs it on the NEM blockchain. So essentially, your asset becomes a marketplace.
Okay.
Right? So that means that I can produce, let's say, 15 songs, and I said anyone who wants to listen to my song can only find it here. You download it into this space, and then you can purchase it, and then it becomes locked on the NEM blockchain.
Wow.
So that's how the asset becomes smart.
So if let's say I'm just a normal musician then, and I'm a band and I want to sell this music that we've all got rights to, and I go through a distributor. One of the biggest problems with distributors in history has been they just pay you a check at the end of the month, and you have to trust that they're giving you the right amount. So what you're saying is that if you move that system to the NEM blockchain, like a blockchain-based system, you'd be able to see exactly how many records are being sold, or digital downloads of the song are being sold, and make sure that at the end of the day you're getting paid as much as you should be getting paid.
Yep, exactly. Okay. So for example, right now, Corporate Bank is actually working with another startup called Recordgram.
Yeah. And
Recordgram, this is like a bit of like Telegram, Recordgram. Okay. So it's a social platform where you could actually record your voice onto tunes that producers would have produced, and they actually won the last TechCrunch New York Disrupt competition.
Wow!
And they're in fact going into tokenizing their system.
Yep.
And Corporate Bank is actually working to actually timestamp some of their work as a copyright for that.
Yep.
So in fact, just today itself, at the end of the May, DJ Blackout, one of the celebrities, just timestamp a video of a song that he had produced onto the Corporate Bank platform.
Wow!
As an example of that.
So it's working right now.
Yeah, that's right. So actually, if you go to corporatebank.com, that you can actually access it and see and actually sign up, log in, and have tokens which you can then redeem to timestamp your copyright.
And that was one of the big things that really amazed me when because I feel like NEM doesn't get as much the attention as, say, Ethereum, for example, or some of the other platforms. But I find myself, I talk to a lot of business, and I find myself with other platforms saying, oh, this is on the way. Oh, this is what they're wanting to do. This will eventually happen. But more and more what I've noticed with NEM is that whenever I'm talking about some project that NEM are doing, it's already happening. And it seems like NEM are very far ahead with that implementation stage.
That's right. So what we need now is just focused marketing and getting more on board and getting more businesses on board as well.
Yeah.
And we've actually got a channel to do that, which is called the NEM Community Fund. So I'll let Jian explain what the community fund's about.
Okay.
Yeah, so the community fund essentially is just for us a way to fund projects that we believe in. So it gets voted from the community. Let's say you're looking for funding.
Yeah.
You just give us a proposal.
Yeah.
We put the proposal on one of our forums to be voted on. They get 65% of the votes on their side and say like, okay, this is a good project from the community themselves. So we don't decide; it's actually the community that decides. So up until 65%, I think it's the threshold. So if 65% say that this is a good project, we want to throw money on this project, then we release the funds to these the people that are seeking funding.
Okay, so it's like a decentralized treasury.
Exactly, yeah.
Brilliant. Kind of like what Dash is doing, the Dash model? Quite similar. Okay. So a bit of a decentralized autonomous organization then, in a way. Yeah. Okay. Wow, that's great. And so where does the money come from again, did you say? Is it the block rewards or...
No, we have a war chest.
Yeah, so essentially NEM's all been pre-mined already.
Okay.
And as part of it being pre-mined, the initial outcome was to actually everyone who claimed their ZEM stake would equally have a share in it, and there were some unclaimed stakes. And that unclaimed stakes had been converted into community fund. So in fact, we've got about 300 million ZEM that had been allocated for the fund right now.
Wow.
So that fund is then being utilized where companies get paid in ZEM to actually build on the NEM blockchain itself.
Okay.
And other than the community fund, there's also been fund that had been allocated for the growth of the NEM blockchain.
Yep.
So a council was developed, and the NEM.io Foundation as a non-profit was also developed to protect, promote, and develop the NEM blockchain itself.
Wow. Okay. Brilliant. Well, that sounds like there's a lot of funding going on then, and that from what I've seen in the blockchain space, so we've seen it with Dash, we're seeing a similar thing with EOS, I think, is that the market seems to be shifting to more of a community-based funding model because it makes sense. Right. Then if you want to have someone building for your platform, they don't have to run an ICO or something. They can just be funded and get the benefit of the community and also the community benefits as well because someone's building for the platform and expanding the ecosystem. Okay, so I just wanted to pivot a little bit and do a little bit of an offside about smart contracts because that's one of the biggest differences I noticed with the NEM blockchain as opposed to some of the other smart execution platforms in the space was that NEM actually don't execute smart contracts on-chain. Most of the execution happens off-chain. Okay. So can you explain a little bit about the decision to keep smart contracts off-chain as opposed to putting them on-chain?
Yep. So I guess we've seen some outcomes of smart contracts being on chain.
Yep.
You know, like the parity hack
Yep.
and a few other things that had been on chain that had led to the congestion in transaction as well with things that are being built on chain. And so now there's this conversation about, what about building off chain? And off chain meaning that everything is being done off the blockchain, right? But through API calls linked on the blockchain. Yeah. So then the question comes on security. Can someone actually interrupt that API movement and then hack something like that, right? But to date, there hasn't been any hacking on the NEM blockchain itself. Yeah. There have been exchanges that were hacked, and there have been ICOs that were hacked, but not the NEM blockchain itself. So the integrity of the NEM blockchain has still been kept despite our decision to have off-chain smart contracts and then develop on-chain itself.
Yeah. Okay. So if I'm let's say I'm a business and I want to do business with a few other businesses on the NEM blockchain, and we say, okay, we're going to need a few smart contracts to make sure everything works like we say it's going to work.
Yep.
What would be the best approach for a business to take to make sure that execution is as in the open as possible if it's not going to happen on chain?
Yep, that's right. So for example, if let's say there's an A, B, and C business and they want to ensure the integrity of the movement within their transactions, A, B, and C would decide which part of the transaction goes on the blockchain. So for example, if the three of them say that, okay, because we're starting early, every single transaction or movement would go on the blockchain.
Yeah.
So that means that they agree if A transacts with B and B transacts with C, every transaction is then put on a blockchain. So that the transaction occurs off chain first and then locked on chain with the blockchain, right?
Right.
And then another option is, let's say A, B, C, and let's say, we'll do a daily reconciliation, and all three agree at the end of the day, then just one transaction is then being locked on the blockchain.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like a side channel then. It's not, it's essentially it's like maybe a little bit similar to what Lightning is doing with Bitcoin, where you come off to the side, you perform your business logic.
That's right.
You don't have to process all that on chain, which takes a lot of time.
Correct.
But at the end of the day, what's going on there still comes back to the blockchain and gets reported. Yep. It's just that you're not processing it on the blockchain.
That's right. Because a new processor, if A transfers to B on the blockchain and B transfers to C on the blockchain, then you get
it clogs. That's the problem with Ethereum at the moment.
Yeah,
everything's slow because everyone's all the nodes are having to do all the computation.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's
okay.
Right. Yeah.
All right. That makes a lot of sense. So I wanted to talk a little bit in my talks with business, and we've talked about this a fair bit on the podcast as well, that there's a growing movement towards either consortium or private blockchains. And I know NEM has a
Mijin, that's what
a project called Mijin. Could you explain a little bit the difference between the public NEM blockchain and what's going on with Mijin?
Yep. So Mijin is a totally separate, permissioned private blockchain, and the difference with the NEM public blockchain is that it does not interact with the public blockchain, and all the transactions are on your own. You don't actually pay the transaction fee for NEM. NEM, you pay 0.05 ZEM for that. In the Mijin platform, you pay sort of a recurring fee to maintain your nodes online, and also then sort of a licensing fee to use our technology, our proprietary technology, and that would then use the features that NEM would have. So the features would be something that we've just mentioned, like a POSer, multi-sig, the voting platform, can then be replicated into Mijin as well. And Mijin sounds very Japanese. That's because it's done in partnership with a Japanese company called Tech Bureau Corporation, and they run the ZAFE exchange, which is one of the largest exchanges in terms of ZEM volume, and they have been also promoting the Mijin platform. In fact, the latest development with Mijin is that Catapult, which is going to be launched end of the year, it's actually on Mijin right now, so you can test it there. And it's actually available on the Microsoft Azure marketplace.
Yeah, I heard about that.
And actually download Mijin and use it as a blockchain as a service platform.
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah, so we've featured Microsoft Azure before, and it's actually one of the big examples I give when I'm talking to business is what Microsoft are doing with their private blockchains. And so NEM has just recently come onto Azure then. Could you talk a little bit more about that partnership and exactly why businesses are moving towards NEM as opposed to, say, something like Ethereum using Microsoft Azure?
Yep, so I guess NEM is a plug and play solution, and we literally want enterprises to literally plug it into their own business, and that's where the Microsoft Azure partnership came about, so that they'd be able to essentially purchase sort of the Mijin platform and then plug it into their business itself. So the reason is it's really simple as well. So yeah, you mentioned about Ethereum. If they were to actually use the Ethereum platform, they would actually need some specialized skill sets. So like Jian mentioned, usually a computer science degree graduate would be quite competent in C++ or Java, the basic language. So it's much easier for enterprise to actually get the existing developers to do that. Like I've actually seen developers who would take a couple of weeks to develop something on another platform, but with them they could do it overnight because they found it's that easy.
Wow, okay, and that's a really important point too, isn't it? Because if you want to develop for Ethereum, for example, you need to learn Solidity or something similar, which is a completely new language. And that's been one of the big barriers. I know Consensus are running a training program to try and get more developers to develop for Solidity. But if we can use the existing languages to do things, then you've got such a wider area of talent. But I think also it makes a lot more sense from a security perspective as well.
That's right.
When you're dealing with something that you know intimately, it makes a lot more sense that you would pick up a lot of the errors that you might not pick up if you're dealing with a new language.
So interestingly, I actually was in Consensus during in New York, and actually met the person who was running the academy training for Ethereum. He was running Solidity, and I was asking him also it's really hard to learn. And he acknowledges it, and it's a bit of a pain, but once you master it, you can do a lot with it. But I said, don't you think that there would be in the next 3 to 6 months something else that would be easier or faster to run? And he acknowledged that as well, saying they could potentially be, because the ecosystem is just moving so fast. But just as of today itself, it's learning this language and learning through it. So there is also a risk where you're learning something that may actually be obsolete in the next couple of months. And it takes a fair while to get a grasp on that stuff. So my impression is with NEM is that the core ethos with what you're doing seems to be meeting people where they're at, as opposed to asking people to shift themselves. You're saying, we'll come to you. Is that accurate? Does that... Yeah, I would say so. I mean, from a community perspective, we're in 50 different countries with almost 100 different cities, where we've got meetup leaders like Jian being a Melbourne meetup leader, speaking to people about the NEM blockchain. So we're on the ground, on the boots on the ground. We don't see many other blockchain protocols doing that, because we want to be intentional to reach out to people. So in fact, Jian was in Canberra just on Monday, speaking to the community there with government and the university and so on. And we've also got a team in Brisbane as well, which I think you've heard about NEM first over there, and different activities by the NEM platform.
And so can we talk a little bit about the community then here in Australia, and also the broader NEM community? Because my impression, the more I learn about NEM, is that it is very much a community project, and there seems to be a lot happening at the grassroots. Like there's obviously you've got Mijin as well, which is the corporate side, but there seems to be a very active community. I remember when I was first researching it, I went on the Reddit page, and I think they've got the best FAQ, like frequently asked questions, out of anyone. The amount of information that was there.
That's good to know.
It was brilliant. But talk a little bit about the community both here in Australia and broader around the world.
I'll let Jian answer that.
So we do have a really dedicated community. We are all our Telegram groups where everybody can help each other out, and it's very, very active at the moment too. In terms of what we do in Australia here in the community, what we do in terms of education, like Jason said, we travel around giving talks, trying to educate the masses on what NEM is, what NEM's place in the blockchain. And like I was in Canberra recently, just talking to them as well. We have Australian team, like you said, in the community basis, we actually go to them as well. So we don't actually ask people to come over to us, pay for tickets, come over to us, we'll give you a talk. We actually go to these places and actively involve them in, and then give them talks with them as well. Like quite recently, we helped RMIT develop, sponsor and develop one of their, student club, student club there at RMIT, and then I've been guest lecturing at Deakin University as well. So we do a lot of these community programs as well, just go around, give talks, and then again, the other side of it is hopefully build people, have people build on the NEM platform as well, and educate them how to build on the NEM platform.
And how's the reception been then at the universities and at the educational institutions?
Very good, very considering that they approach us and we don't approach them. So that's always a good indicator of how much excitement people have with the NEM platform. So yeah, it's pretty good.
Next week I'll be at the Melbourne Law School talking to law grads about it.
Oh wow!
So
Okay,
it'll be interesting to see from the legal perspective what the questions are there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've got a law background myself, and some of what I saw with the NEM platform really intrigued me too. With the way, I think the notary system was one of them, but the way that you're building the platform, it does seem to make sense. For example, with wills as well, to have something that, because the biggest problem with the law industry in general, I think, is that technology moves very slow in the law industry, and I know from experience asking law firms and lawyers to shift to something completely new, completely foreign, like Ethereum or something similar, is quite hard because it's not very approachable. And it's quite different. And my impression with NEM is that barrier, and from what you're saying, that barrier might be quite a bit lower than...
we try to act as a catalyst, essentially.
Yeah.
Because, again, people are trying to find out what blockchain can do.
Yeah.
And like Jason mentioned, we have to learn different languages on building those platforms. We're trying to make it as easy as possible, plug and play. So think of NEM as a catalyst for blockchain and the systems in place right now.
Kind of like an easy place to dip your toes in.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, yeah. And I think that's the key with a lot of this blockchain adoption, isn't it? That we need to find a way to meet the industry where it's at and allow them to at least test the waters first, and maybe say, okay, well, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater and don't shift everything over to blockchain. Maybe just target this small area and try it with that, and then move on.
Just make it as easy as possible to try.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, and how have you found the projects coming out of the community then? So it sounds like there's a lot of business projects building on NEM, but are there some open source projects coming out of the community that are being built on NEM as well?
On the business side, I'm quite aware that there are a number of business building on us, but can you elaborate on what kind of projects you're talking about?
For example, with with Ethereum, they've got projects like Open Law, which is like an open source legal contracts platform that the community is working on. Are there projects with NEM that
Yeah, they are. So for example, there's a open source project called Landstat. It's based out of Europe, where companies can actually take that initial platform that they built and then use it for land titles and registries on the blockchain. So if you go onto the website and just search for Landstat, you'll be able to find that. And then there's NEM Pay as well, which is a payment platform where people have been developing ways of making it easier for that. You've got NEM P3, which is on music, and NEM Pack, which is a gaming platform about the Pac-Man.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah. So people are experimenting on that, and essentially what they're saying is, I'm putting my code up there, and anyone can start to build on that, and sort of that becomes that open source environment that's being developed. So we've got the business side of things, and we've got that open source platforms as well.
Brilliant. Okay, and so if I'm a business, what and I'm looking at the blockchain, thinking this is something we need to get into, and trying to work out where I might fit into the ecosystem. What would be the areas that you would say make the most sense for you to use NEM at the moment?
So currently, anything that has the time stamping function to it, to actually acknowledge a transaction, that's a very important piece there. Another area that's very popular is payments as well. So in terms of using cryptocurrency as underlying transaction platform, so that the transaction becomes a lot faster.
And I saw that a few banks were using that to, like, so I think they were coming out of Japan or somewhere else where they were tokenizing their currency and using the NEM, the underlying NEM architecture as a way to settle their internal transactions a lot faster.
That's right. That's right. So instead of actually using actual cash to do the transaction, the cryptocurrency becomes the value that's being used, but then the final output only then becomes that fiat currency, right? So.
Okay, and the benefit of that, of course, would be that you have an inbuilt audit trail in the fact that it's all there on a immutable ledger.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, and you could build some kind of smart contract to report that all back to whatever your auditing software is, for example. What else did you guys want to cover? Cover anything
I think that should be about it. Yeah, good.
All right. No, that's good. I just you can tell I'm quite passionate about the project.
Yeah, that's right. It's a really good questions. You know your stuff. That's very good.
Yeah. So if I'm someone that's looking to get into blockchain then, or looking to check more out about NEM, where should I go first? What should I be doing?
Yep. So NEM.io is the website to go to.
Yep.
And then NEM's on Telegram as well. So just search NEM or NEM Red, which is our NEM. If you got NEM Blue as well, you got Nembiria, so the red and the blue peel.
Okay.
And we actually
like
have a good vibrant community. So just search NEM Foundation Meetups, and you can see the different meetups all across the world that we are there. And we're here in Melbourne at the Blockchain Centre.
Yep.
So come by over if you're in Melbourne.
Yeah, they're very, very friendly here. So if you are in Melbourne, come by and say good day. Is there any other shout outs you want to do? Anyone you want to call out, shout out to before we finish?
I'm good. No, that's
great. I guess watch this space. We want the NEM blockchain to be a winning blockchain, and I strongly believe so. But I believe that it is the ecosystem in general. So everyone should just be paying more attention to where the world will look like in terms of blockchain technology. Yeah. So that's something that we should all pay attention to, the blockchain platform and technology behind that. Yeah.
Okay. Well, Jason and Jen, thank you so much. And
thanks, man. Yeah.
We'll definitely watch this space.
All right. Then.
Brilliant. Cheers.
Bye.
So fascinating to hear. You had a great time.
I had a great time, and that was all done like very suddenly. I'd only messaged them about 30 minutes before on Twitter saying I was coming. And then I rocked up, and they were all just so friendly. Like, everyone was so friendly, and they were like, "Yeah, come in. Let's do an interview. No preparation needed at all. We just sat down in a room, and got straight into it." So
amazing.
Yeah, and look, they're actually really good to follow on Twitter. If you've got Twitter or LinkedIn or anything like that, those guys down there are great to follow because they travel a lot. They were traveling with Travel by Bit up in 1770, and they've been doing a bunch of other stuff around the place. They always seem to be on the go, doing some community thing so
amazing.
So check out NEM. So we're going to give Jordan a call, and look, I'm not sure how this call's actually going to go because we knew that the 21st episode was coming up, and we had planned to do gambling coins ourselves as like a feature. The gambling blockchain technology. There's a lot of stuff out there, but we thought since Jordan hadn't really put many articles in for us at all, hadn't really been doing any of the jobs we pay for him, we would get him to do it as a way to kind of win our trust back and get him back on our payroll.
Yeah.
So we're going to check in and see how he's been going. And Jordan, have we got you?
Yes. Oh, no. Oh, Brew, we almost had 3 bars, huh? Oh, Matt, how you doing, huh?
I'm good, Jordan. How are you?
Oh, I've been better, huh? I've just been doing some research for the show, the upcoming episode 21. I've just been sitting in this lit room for the last 2 days, researching. I'll have this stuff ready for you just in time for the episode. When is the episode?
Well, we're recording it now, Jordan. So we're actually calling you while we're recording.
Oh, really?
What's more important is how's the research been going? What have you been finding out about gambling coins?
Oh, Brew, I found that quite a lot actually. I've been experimenting. I've been learning. It's not an easy thing, huh? You can't just gamble and win every time, huh?
Do you feel like blockchain makes sense for gambling applications?
Oh, blockchain. Oh, yes, blockchain. What do you mean, huh?
Oh, yeah, Jordan, blockchain coins. We asked you to look at blockchain-based gambling coins.
Oh, Brew. I did not understand that brief, huh?
What have you been doing for the last couple of weeks, Jordan?
Oh, I've been at the casino, huh? Just researching for the show, finding some things out, checking my balance.
Right, and what have you found out?
Oh, it's very easy to lose $275,000 in a week.
Jordan, you've lost $275,000.
Oh, it's all good, bro. That's
Jordan, I thought you didn't have any money left. I thought you'd used it all when we had to bail you out of Vladivostok.
Oh, actually, I found somebody who's willing to back me when I told him I could beat the house, huh? So he lent me a couple thousand.
Right, and he wants you to pay this couple
Look,
hundred
I'm
thousand
getting
back.
out of here pretty soon. I've got the diplomatic passport for Liberland. I've got to go, huh?
Okay, Jordan. Well, we need that report on, but we've got deadlines.
No worries. I'm on it. I've got to go. Okay.
Mate, I mean, I extended this to him as a favour. I wanted to bring him back into the FOMO fold.
It was literally the prodigal son of crypto.
Yeah.
You were happy to welcome him back.
Yeah, and
give
I
him
said
something to motivate him.
I even said, Jordan, just to be clear, this is blockchain gambling coins. I don't want you just to go out and gamble. Blockchain gambling coins.
Ridiculous.
That man.
Can't follow a simple brief.
Well, look, now he's made more enemies, and who knows where he is. So,
the drama continues.
Guess we're just going to have to do the gambling coin thing ourselves. If you know someone who might enjoy this, please feel free to share it with them.
You can find us at FOMO.show.
You can jump on our Telegram at FOMO.show/Telegram.
You can follow us on Twitter at _FOMO_show.
You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/The FOMO Show.
And YouTube at FOMO.show/YouTube.
That's it for us here at The FOMO Show. Thank you so much for joining us. If you like our show, please do feel free to subscribe in your podcast app of choice or via our YouTube channel. I'm Matt.
I'm Joe.
And as always, remember,
no FOMO. Episode 21.
Oh, mate, gambling coins would have been the business.
This is the episode that could have been the episode about gambling coins, but it wasn't because we couldn't be bothered.
We just thought of it too late. You thought of it too late.
I did.
I didn't think of it at all.
We could do it on 210.
121.
Oh, 121.
210.
Yep.
I'm trying to think of another episode that has like gambling connotations to it, but no, 21's probably the perfect time to do it.
We missed the proverbial boat.
Oh, it's all good.
Connect yourself easier with a couple merchants.
Decentralized API for mobile payments.
Something to watch, eh?
We're going to look at setting it up, and I might tinker with it sometime soon.
Give it a little tinker. Tinker tailor.
Tinker laddie.
Candlestick maker. Can I tell, laddie? Exploring the recesses of the blockchain the other day.
EOS has already surpassed Bitcoin in chain length in 6 days.
6 days. In 6 days.
In 6 days.
And on the 7th day.
And on the 7th day,
EOS
Dan Laram arrested.
We are going to a special part of hell.
Satoshi's just resting.
Over to you. Oh, wait, over to me.
And now over to Joe.
Back to you.
In the studio.
Microphone tennis. I don't know.
And how's the weather, Veronica?
Better watch out on the roads this morning. I don't know. I'm going to just 90% of what I say is total crap. And then I cut that out and it sounds like some semblance of just...
Sounds like we're like...
functioning.
Yeah, normal people. Really, every episode is just a Frankenstein cut of random words we say.
I'm so scared. I was so scared.
For those listening, our garage door just opened and Joe's, like, if you take out the walls, probably only 2 or 3 meters from the garage door, so...
I was just so ready to die. No, but you know, it's always a robot. It's like, bee, and then after like 2 seconds, it just jumps and you're dead.
Yeah, then suddenly, like, the wall's exploding and...
Yeah.
Yeah. We got through like 4 or 5 hours of that once. The 10-hour sax guy at Schoolies in the admin office. And we were going a little bit insane by the end of it.
great though.
I can still hear it in my head. The hip thrust. That's right. It got #1.
#1 in Moldova.
Who, like, saxophone too. I had a shower. I think I need to sit in the bath.
Hey.
Oh, that's going to be on the recording now. Hey, Joe. Hey, mate. Sorry. Sorry.
Sorry.
So sorry. Sorry.
Apologies.
Oh, sorry.
Excuse me.
Oh, sorry. Coming through. Oh, sorry.
Miss Squeezy.
Sorry.
Sorry, you see what I mean? I just get carried away. I really must fall. Sorry, everyone. He's killed the best man.
Hold it. This is Sir Lancelot from the court of Camelot. A very brave and influential knight. And my special guest here today.
Hello.
He killed my auntie.